But I do not regret standing up to men ever. Because y'all need to be told about yourselves. But yeah, I think my rebel energy comes from a long line of women on both sides of my family. I'm Panamanian Jamaican and I'm Ashkenazi Jew. People that have been fleeing war, persecution on both sides of my family. That's where my rebel energy, it's in my bloodline.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest lessons in my life that I'm probably going to learn for a long time is how to alchemize that into something that is really, really effective for myself and for my community or my kids or whoever it is. And, I'm learning every single day. And sometimes the decisions I make are the right decision. And sometimes the decisions I make are the lessons that I have to learn. And I'm totally okay with that.
Right.
I have no issues with messing up.
Oh my gracious.
Even back in high school, Jennifer inspired more than
Cambié la imagen por vender Bitcoin.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga.
Hi, Zoila.
Hi, Allie.
Do you remember when we met?
I know that it was some kind of music event. Was it in Miami?
It was in Miami.
Yeah.
It was for Hispanicize.
Oh my gosh, a relic.
Were we on a panel together? I'm still trying to figure this out.
You know what? Somebody just recently sent me a photo of me on a panel from Hispanicize, and I think it might have been the one that I met you on.
You know what's so funny? Because you know how they're bringing like Snapchat back? So I was looking through like my old snaps.
Yeah.
And I feel like I saw the panel like briefly. Like I was like, oh man, I remember Miami.
Things were so simple.
So simple.
So simple.
So simple. So that's how we met. And you were heavy in the music industry. I do remember that.
I was. I went hard for independent Latino artists. It was a very, very special and traumatic time of my life.
Really dramatic?
Yeah, it was like a lot.
I feel like when people are in the music industry, there's like this love-hate that happens.
Oh my gosh.
It's like you want to get out, but you're like, oh, but I love it so much. Like there's so much passion there.
Yeah.
I felt like there was passion for you though. Behind all of it, I still feel like you were going hard. But I was trying to figure out, I'm like, is she going hard for the potential of the artist? Is she going hard for the culture of the music? Like, what was it for you about the music industry that you love so much?
Well, I grew up in the music business. Both of my parents are musicians. They met playing music together in Madrid, Spain, where I was born. My mom played with Celia Cruz when she was pregnant with me.
Legendary.
So I am like,
Legendary.
my 2 feet firmly rooted in the power of music and the power to connect people through sound and to teach lessons through music. Music is like it's like a historical recorder of everything that's happened in history. And sometimes I'm like, we're still singing about this? Yeah, because it's still happening.
Yeah.
But I started working in music when I was super young. Like I used to do the door for my parents. They would do these shows at the Brooklyn Conservatory, these jazz shows that they were in a big band. I started doing the door, I think, when I was like 5. I was at all my mom's shows, at rehearsals with her, 2 chairs like put together, taking naps in the studio. So I'm a child of that industry. I grew up with Aventura, Romeo Santos in my house.
Crazy.
And so, yeah, crazy. And so,
so amazing.
So when I went to go work for Maimba Music, my family's label and publishing company, award-winning, started by my mom, Marty Cuevas, it was very personal for me. And at the same time, being of Afro-Latina descent and knowing that a lot of the rhythms that we speak to as Latino come from African, history and African cultures, I was kind of like, where are we?
Yeah.
Visibly, where are we?
Yeah.
And, it's always challenging to work and to champion for the underdog, You know,
Yeah.
it's like being a Mets fan. Sorry.
But there's a lot to unpack there. One, there's a couple of components, right?
Yeah.
So you worked with your mom.
Oh, God, the mob, I like to call it.
Like that's
Yeah. Working with the family is
working
like a
with
mob.
the family.
Out of the family.
That is like, how was that?
It was illuminating. I would say that I had to teach myself a lot because when you start a company and you build different parts of that company, the people that start those departments kind of have to build, like, you have to build the best practices. You have to build the blueprint for what this is going to look like for that particular brand, for that company. And I was super young, and my mom was like, yeah, go ahead, do it. And so it was a lot of learning, a lot of teaching myself. And it was a challenge, and I felt helpless very often. But I will tell you, the first time I went to one of the many music summits and events that I would go to in Miami, I started to connect with other women in the music business, other Latinas. And that's really where I found my voice, right? It was looking at these other women that were in corporate, because we were indie, so it's but we need each other, right?
Right.
And communing with them and speaking truth to our power, right, together, and laughing and creating really long-term friendships that some of them I still have today.
Yeah.
That's where I found my power, right? And so it became so much more than even just about the music. It became like being a person that's able to come and step into a room where you've been told that you probably shouldn't be there, and then saying, I'm going to come here and I'm going to take up space and you're going to hear me, whether you like it or not. I mean, I've been removed from clubs before.
Jeez. You were a little rebel.
I was a woman in a male-dominated space that didn't want me to be there, right? And I didn't have a corporate boss to answer to. So I was like, I'm going to say whatever I want to say.
But where does that come from? Because for me, growing up, I always felt like even if I wanted to have an opinion, I just felt like I wasn't allowed that space to have an opinion. I didn't grow up with, like my mom would just kind of be like, just this is what it is. Like even if I asked her, but why? She'll be like, because this is what I said.
Right.
So I wonder for you, like that family dynamic, it seems like they kind of gave you the freedom to have that opinion.
My mom gave me that freedom. She encouraged it. My mom is a white Jewish woman from the Bay who marched in the civil rights movement and chose to be on the side of the outlier always. And so I was raised radical. I was raised to speak for those that don't have a voice, because I really hate when people say that. Everybody has a voice, but for those who aren't given a platform to speak. And so I spent a lot of my life doing that, but at the same time neglecting what I needed. You can't show up for everybody all the time, especially if you're not showing up for yourself. So those were some lessons that I had to learn as a young woman, but I do not regret standing up to men ever. Because y'all need to be told about yourselves. But yeah, I think my rebel energy comes from a long line of women on both sides of my family. I'm Panamanian Jamaican and I'm Ashkenazi Jew. People that have been fleeing war, persecution on both sides of my family. That's where my rebel energy, it's in my bloodline.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest lessons in my life that I'm probably going to learn for a long time is how to alchemize that into something that is really, really effective for myself and for my community or my kids or whoever it is. And I'm learning every single day. And sometimes the decisions I make are the right decision. And sometimes the decisions I make are the lessons that I have to learn. And I'm totally okay with that. I have no issues with messing up.
I love that.
I
love that. Tell me, Zoila, what do I have to understand about your earliest years to really understand the woman that you are today?
Oh, wow. That's a big question, Allie. I think speaking as far back as I can, right? Which is probably like 5 years old. I don't know what was really I have stories, but from what I personally remember, I was raised by a single mom
Mm-hmm.
who was working her butt off, and I was left to my own devices quite often. Thankfully, I have a really strong brain and make pretty good decisions. I've made some questionable ones as a young woman, but for the
We
most
all
part,
do, we
I'm
all
doing
do.
fine. I'm right here with
Yeah,
you. I'm
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But I think to understand Zoila is to know that I have, by proxy of a very hardworking, loving person who was doing their best, I was really left to fend for myself, you know? And so today, I try to not be that person. And it's really
Right.
challenging because that means I have to ask for help all the time. And if you know anybody that's like a recovering perfectionist or control freak, whichever one you want to call it, asking for help means that you have to put your faith in somebody else. And it's so hard to do that when you felt for so long like you're you have to do it.
Right.
But I'm really proud of myself for the growth that I have had, especially as a mother. Like,
Well, I was going to ask you, what has that even taught you? Because now you playing the opposite side.
I just feel blessed as a mom.
Yeah.
My kids are amazing. They're healthy. They're smart. They're rebellious, which is a sign of a very healthy child. And I have an incredible partner that will ride for me and ride for our kids. And we work together, and we parent together, and we're married, and we do bills together, and we're like all those things. And that's something I didn't grow up seeing. And so I already know from there that I'm breaking the cycle.
Right.
Right?
Was that something that was intentional prior to you? Like when you were pregnant, did you say, when I have my kid and this baby comes out, this is how I'm going to raise them?
Yeah. My husband and me, Zach and me, have been together since we were 22. I'm 38. So it's been
Love that.
16 years. And we've had, a very long and beautiful companionship with its struggles, of course, as anybody who has spent 16 years with somebody living in the same house. But I made it very clear, and this is my rebellious, you could call it rebellious, or you could call it somebody that knows what they want and they're not willing to compromise. I made it very clear from the day we started dating, this is an equal opportunity home and will always be.
Where does that strength come from?
I have no idea. No, my mom. It's my mom. And I think it comes from...
It sounds like you like, from early on, you've been knowing your worth. You've been, like, you know your value as a person. Like,
I was told that I was a king in my past life. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But I do exhibit a strong, what you would consider masculine energy when it comes to like what I'm willing to take and what I'm not willing to take. Like I will say no. But I do think a lot of it has come from watching and deciding I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So to not do that, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And
was that like an understanding with you and your partner? Like, was he totally accepting of that?
Yeah, we both come from broken homes,
Okay.
right? Like we both come from divorced families. And we've always made it very clear that, marriage is something that we take very seriously, but we also know that love is not enough. Marriage is a business arrangement as well. It's an agreement between two people to show up and treat each other with respect and understand that you're going to be here and I might be here and vice versa, but we always have to meet here, right? And so...
That's good. That's really good.
I have a lot of things to say about relationships,
I love that.
I feel like I have some skin in the game. But I think at the end of the day, it's a mutual respect and a want to see your partner be the best that they can be, but also understand that some days they're going to have to lay down and you need to let them lay down, right? And then be there for them when they're ready to stand up.
What has your marriage taught you?
My marriage has taught me that humor is very important in any type of relationship.
Laughing is the best medicine.
Oh my gosh.
They do say that.
But my marriage has taught me patience the most patience, and my kids are now also reinforcing that patience.
Oh yeah, kids will do that.
Sometimes,
They test your patience.
girl, just this morning, I was like, can we, God, deliver me from this? No, marriage has taught me a lot about patience. It's taught me that, I'm going to repeat this, to be in a relationship with a person, whether it is a friendship or romantic, it means that you need to have a vested interest in the growth of that person and be willing to be an accomplice, right? And I think we can show up for the people that we love in various ways. It doesn't mean like I need to be on the phone with you every single night if I'm going to be your best friend, right?
Right.
But it does mean that if you call me and you're having a hard time, like I'm the type of friend that will get on a plane and come to you. Right? Like I'll like we could have been fighting for the last 2 years. If you call me and you're like, Z, like I'm in trouble, I'll come.
Yeah.
And Zach and me have that relationship. Like we get over fights very quickly. It's not to say that we don't hold grudges.
Right.
We're married, okay?
I'm the type where I can't go to bed until we resolve the issue.
No. We don't go to bed angry.
But I also feel like there's like a flip side too, right? Like there's some times where I'll go through, some issues and I'm just like, you know what? Before I react to it, let me just sleep this one out. Let me take a nap. Let me wake up. Let me see if I feel different about you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have that energy.
What we teach our 5-year-olds, practice the pause.
I like that.
Right?
Practice the pause.
Think, then speak. And for 5-year-olds, never use your hands because sometimes they'll be like, we got to practice the pause. And that again is patience, right? Because our willingness to react without thinking things through is that need to exert yourself, right? And like puff up and that ego. And I think being a woman of color, unfortunately, this world, it instills an ego in us that I wish that we never had to hold, right? I really wish that we didn't have to. So we're working through that in real time every single day and letting our guard down, right? And it's funny, like, it took me a long time to learn how to ask for help. And now in motherhood and as a business owner, I ask for help from my husband specifically all the time. He does not ask for help. He will just expect me to to step in. And most of the time I do, but sometimes I don't because I have taught myself to ask for help. So I'm like, if he needs help right now, he'll ask for it. And so a conflict that has happened before is like, me asking for help and then feeling like maybe I'm bothering somebody or bothering him. And then in my head, I'm like, do you know how hard it was for me to ask for this help? It was so hard. And now I feel like I'm bothering you, right? But when we have to keep telling ourselves, like, it doesn't matter. That is just you're projecting your own on them and vice versa. And when we can start to realize that like feelings are not facts, that's when we really start to have those deep, long-term relationships that can really transform you as a person, right? And transform the world because we want healthy people to have healthy babies and have mentally healthy children because that is what we need in this world. I read something that said that if every 5-year-old learned how to meditate, we would literally have world peace. Because that is how we build humans that understand how to manage and work with other humans.
But that also has to start from now because if you think about how we grew up, I come from divorced parents as well. And I come from, my mom was literally arguing with my dad the entire time she was pregnant with me, and that's a fact. I think growing up, I was so angry. Like, I was just like this angry person all the time. Like, I would be with a face, like, that resting face? That was me at 5, like, all the time. And it wasn't until I got older that I'm like, why why am I mad? Like, I get to get up. I have
everything's
another
fine.
chance.
Right.
I'm breathing air. Like, what the hell am I so upset about? So I think culturally, it's instilled within us. I feel like as a culture, we just have grown up with so much, I don't want to say hostility, because that's not for every household, but not everybody grew up with parents that said, "You're wonderful, you're so great, keep going, keep pushing."
Most of us didn't.
We didn't have
Yeah.
affirmations. We didn't have grace. We didn't have all those words that we're hearing today. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
We didn't even have therapists. You know what I'm saying? I don't think
And our parents had less than what we had.
Right.
And that's something that I also have drilled into myself. And whenever I talk to friends who have inner conflict with their own moms specifically, you know, I'm like, listen, you don't have to have a relationship with your mother or your father if it does not feel in alignment with you.
Right.
But for your own health and the future of your family or the people that are around you, it's really important to just forgive.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're all showing up with so much trauma, compounded with the world, you know, and what's already running in our blood. And everybody really is doing their best, even when they're doing the worst, right? And it's just it's so challenging. Like, we've, as a people period, all over the world have experienced so much. And I think the ongoing conversations about what generational trauma actually means, that it actually lives in the bloodstream, like it's genetic, is something that needs to be continued to talk about. Because you know when you'll be in a situation and you react and you're like, why the am I reacting like this? I don't understand like why I feel this way. You can probably go back into your lineage and find something that happened to a grandmother, a great grandmother, or I think it's like they say like 7-8 generations back, and that could be still running in your blood because the cycle was never stopped, right? And we're all just trying to make it, right? I had a therapist that once told me life is 80% suffering, 20% joy, and I was like, you know what?
Listen,
You're fired.
I was reading the newspaper and it said that there's like a study that shows that you are the happiest from the moment that you are born till you're 2 years old. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
What?
Because you got nothing going on up
Because you
there.
got nothing going on. So I'm like,
there's nothing to inform the darkness around you.
Yes. So I'm like, wow, like 2 years old. But you know what I like about you the most? You're not, to me, and I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, you know, correct me, but I never got the feeling that you were a complainer, meaning that if anything that you felt wasn't right, you created that space for yourself. And I feel like we see that with your business. Like, you were the person that was like, there's a void here that needs to be filled. Let me go this route.
Yeah.
So I wonder if again, I could be wrong, but was that the start of your business? Was that where from inception of like how you were thinking, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm not getting invited in such and such room, so I'm just going to create this agency for myself.
You know, I think it's two things. And I'll go back to this, my rebel energy. I've never liked authority.
I can see that. I can see that in you.
I'm like, you know, so from a young age, and I've been working since I was a kid. I think I got my first job when I was 12. If you don't count my mom, you know, bringing me to the office and having me freaking file paperwork. From the age of like 8, I started filing paperwork. I remember her boss, Bill Kresolowski, was like, oh, she knows the alphabet? Good, she can file. He's like this amazing intellectual property attorney. But so I think there's that piece, right? Like, I was always just kind of like, I don't really want to be in that system. I want to create my own. And so I did that always. I've always done that. I've always been like, oh, and I think it's also like I'm saying that it's because I'm a rebel, but I'm also just a very creative person.
Yeah.
I have a lot in me, a lot of ideas. You know, I'm going to live 1,000 different lives. I know it through my career. I already know.
Yeah.
Like I'm just getting started, y'all.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not done yet.
Keep your eye out. But so there's that. And then, believing that there is something better or more or another way to do things it's a thread, a through line that I've always carried with me from when I was a young kid. And I really think it has a lot to do with whatever past lives I have lived, because I know I'm very old, like in soul.
I was going to say that. Do you feel like you have an old soul?
Oh, yeah. Old. I be seeing people and I'm like, zoop. I'm like, I already met you. I'm good. Like, I know. So I think it's just inherent in me to want to create something that I feel is missing and to believe that I can. And I say that to, I have so many mentees who are afraid or they want like recognition right away, or all of these different things that come with being a creator. And I'm like, you have to remember your why. I was just having a conversation with a mentee the other day, and she's incredible, and she's also a kid of the industry. She comes from a powerhouse entertainment family. And I was like, listen, you can't look at your peers the same way that you look at yourself. The way that they move in this industry, looking for accolades, and that's their in. You've already done all of this. You had, you have access. You can't. And I said to her, I said, well, what is your version of success here? And you need to really create that measurement for yourself. She's only 24. I was like, I'm like, when I was 24, I was not doing this. You're already way up
like
here.
You're ahead of the game.
But I'm like, you need to allow yourself to understand and stick to what your measure of success is for you. What is your why? That you do anything, right? Because if you don't have that, you will stray and you will be like, why am I not on this list? And da-da-da-da-da, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but what is your measure of success? Are you creating community? Are you touching people's lives? Are you making money? Like, what is it that you want to get out of what you're doing?
Right.
And never forget that. Because it's hard to create something new. Yeah. It's scary, and you're putting yourself out there, and especially for folks of color, no one is waiting in the wings to invest in our companies.
Right.
It's and this is why we see this identity at play that happens within communities of color, because we're leaning so heavily on each other to support us, because that's all we feel we have. And I implore people to question that. We have each other and more.
Right.
Our products, our brands, our services are not just for us. They're for us and more. Right? Because we deserve to exist outside of the binary of our cultural identities.
It's interesting, though, because I feel like when I created my event planning company, it came from frustration. That's where it stemmed from for me, because I wasn't getting invited to any industry events. They wouldn't. At the time, I was on radio with DJ Sus1. So he's, a great hip hop DJ. And he was always getting the invitation. And he would invite me. And I'm like, why am I not getting a seat at the table? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to create my own events, and like people are going to come to my events. And that's what I did. But it came out of like, okay, I'm not getting an invitation. And like, what makes him, and again, I have so much love for him, so it had nothing to do with that. But like, why wasn't there a seat for me at the table? What was I missing? Was really what I was asking myself. Like, am I not enough type of energy? That's where it came from.
But that was your ability to question the binary, right? To question, why is there only space for certain types of people? And I can relate to that, to speak to the overall like macro concept of why I start my own things. Yes, it has to do with the fact that I have an issue with some authority and I like to see new things come to life. But with Word, my agency specifically, it was similarly born out of frustration and anxiety and stress. It was a moment in my life, I had a really insanely like Hollywood job
Yeah.
in LA, managing who was supposed to be the next big star. And that all went to and after seeing the inner workings, because I was like, oh, okay, when I got that job, I was like, oh my God, like this is what it's all been for.
Right. All roads lead
all
to
the
this.
banging on doors and saying, see me, see my people. Because she was Afro Latina, the girl I was managing. I was like so excited. But then to see how all of that was handled and to understand like the inner workings of that side of the music business, Hollywood, all that stuff, it only confirmed what I already knew. Right. And so
What did you know at that moment?
That we're all just pawns. Right. And there's people that are going to be pulling the strings, and things have changed a little bit. But at that time, that was very much the height of like before we started to see some of the things that we're seeing now in the music industry, where the level of executive is changing, and we have more young Black and brown people, or just Black and brown people, period, in positions of power. Is very much like the folks in power were very specific types of people in power.
Well, let me, before you get there, I just want to ask you, did you ever feel at any moment that you couldn't be authentic within the music industry? Did you feel like you had to code switch at any moment?
I don't know how to code switch. I think, I do know how to code switch, but I don't. Right. I speak in my language, and my language is that of a Black Latina Jew that grew up in El Barrio. And I've always hung out with people that have never asked me to code switch, so I can go back and forth from whoever I am. It doesn't feel like code switching for me. I will say that as the landscape of executive changes, and like when I'm in these meetings with my corporate brands and stuff like that, it definitely feels more comfortable to be me. But I would not go as far as to say I've ever changed who I am to be in a room. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I've been frustrated for so long.
Yeah.
But I have to go to bed with me, I'm the one that has to go to bed knowing what I did or what I didn't give up for me. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I've missed a lot of rooms because of who I am, but I'm not mad about it.
Well, they weren't the rooms for you.
I don't want to be in there anyway.
Yeah, like they weren't. No, when I say they weren't the rooms for you, it's like you don't.
They're not.
That's not. It probably
Yeah,
was fake.
exactly. Like
they're
not for me. Exactly. Like if I can't be myself in a room, I do not want to be in that room.
Exactly.
And that's just me. I have no hate on anybody that is going to code switch or feel like they have to show up differently in a room. If that's what you need to do to do what's right for you, I want you to do that because you need to do. But my job is to try to change so that you never have to show up unlike yourself in a room. Right?
Can you tell the listeners because I love this, what your what word stands for? I love it.
Word stands for We Open Real Doors.
There you go. There you go.
And it's a creative agency that's really rooted in working with people and brands that want to change the world by creating more space for underrepresented voices, right? Historically marginalized peoples. And that can be anything from women to people of color, right? LGBTQ folks. I think there's so many of us now doing this work, and I love it because I will tell you, when I started Word almost 7 years ago, there were D&I teams within corporate America, but there weren't a lot of agencies, creative agencies, doing the kind of work because it was so niche.
Yeah.
And I really had to push hard to advocate for the type of events and content that I wanted to see on social media. Because
what did you want to see?
I wanted to see something that was real. I remember my first major campaign. It was with Foot Locker. It was major for me, right? It was local.
Yeah.
It was regional, but it was for Foot Action actually. It was so the budget was like nothing. It was if I told you the budget, you'd cry. But it was major for me.
Yeah.
And I was very adamant in how we wanted to tell the stories. And I was like, look, we're selling sneakers. It's Women's History Month. Where are the actual physical women?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we talking to them? This was back in 2018, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. And I look at that content now. It was like a mini documentary, and it was very low budget.
Yeah. Well, you made it do what it do.
But yes, I did. But the subject matter is so important because to me, it felt like one of the first times where you saw a group of women talking about sneaker culture together.
Right.
There were always people talking about what sneaker culture meant for women, but nobody was actually talking to women on like a grander scale from a large brand perspective about that. And now look what we're seeing. Like, you know, it's really important that the voices of the people are heard when you're talking about them.
I mean, that's only the obvious, no? It wasn't the obvious to them?
I don't know. I don't know because for years and years we've had white people behind campaigns created for Black people and so and so and so. And it's like, you have proof of concept right here.
Yeah.
Bring them in.
Was this for all brands that you work or for most? Like, what did you see this? Like, what was that for?
This was
you worked with a lot of brands.
I've worked with a lot of brands. I mean, from there was a ripple effect, right?
Okay.
And we started getting known for the type of work that we were doing, and now it's just blown up, and we're not even like we're like a drop in the ocean now of this type of work, and I'm fine with that because that's the point. It's we open real doors. I want other people to come in and do this stuff.
Can you just list some of the brands that you've worked with? Just so that people
my gosh.
Because I think your work is really amazing. People need to know. People really need to know.
Oh.
Yeah.
You just do the work. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, but I don't want people to sleep on you on this show. So I want you to
so we've had the opportunity to work with, like I said, Foot Action and Foot Locker. We've worked with Nike. We've worked with Converse. We've worked with HBO, Meta, like the LA Philharmonic, like, iHeartRadio, so many different
Selena Gomez,
legacy brands. And I was going to say, and my most recent and most favorite campaign was Hispanic Heritage Month or Latinx, whatever. Don't eat me alive, guys. Month last year for Rare Beauty.
Which is Selena Gomez brand.
Selena Gomez's brand, and we got to shoot her. I got to direct Selena Gomez. It was like so she was like the cutest thing. It was her birthday the day we shot, so we brought a cake out, and that campaign was so fun to do because Katie Welsh, she's gonna get mad because she hates when I call her out, but she's amazing. The CMO of Rare Beauty, she reached out and.
Like, how does she even hear about it?
I have no idea. To this day, I still don't really. She said she saw my work. She reached out and was like, we had a call, and I was like, oh my God. And I remember I was sitting outside of a restaurant in LA, and I was like nervous because like the internet was not great. Like it was a little shaky. And I was like, am I gonna ruin this moment? And she was so great, and her team, Josh, like they were so awesome. And she was like, yeah, we want to do this campaign for Latinx Heritage Month. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, you don't have like, you just want me to like do it? You want me to like make it? You want me to like make it up? Like me? Because like that's what I do. But you don't expect brands to just hand you the reins. And she said, this is your month. You're talking about your people. I want the full perspective to come from somebody that understands it. Mm-hmm. And I took that and ran, and almost everything in that campaign was touched by somebody from our community.
I love that campaign, by the way. It was beautifully shot.
Thank you. Natalia Moscoso, my girl, she shot that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was we shot that in one day. It was crazy.
So
we
good.
had 9 principals, so 10, including Selena Gomez. All of them spoke on camera and gave these robust, beautiful interviews about what it means to be Latina, to be Latinx. And what I loved the most about it was that these Gen Z voices spoke about who they really are, because that was the purpose of the campaign. It was to showcase who we are from our voices. No script, no, just questions, and some
real.
people answered things that were very much connected to the Latinx community, like that being like food and culture and those things, and then some people were like, to me, being Latinx means to be like big, right? To be to be brave, or whatever these indicators that they were using to express who they were. Because again, like, we do not exist in the binary of just our culture, right? It's part of us, but it's not the only thing that we are. And that's why the campaign was, what are you made of, right? I am made of all of these things, of my community. Salma, she said, I'm made of the land. She's an indigenous woman. Like, it was so beautiful. They were all dressed in Latinx designers. Brandon Ruiz, who was our stylist, with their team, they were incredible.
I mean, such a timeless piece. Like, that piece will live on.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It was on a bill. It was our first billboard.
It was amazing.
It was like a dream come true, and I want to see that kind of work reflected everywhere. I just think that brands are afraid to allow people that haven't worked within their binaries of the industry to take control. And then that means that we have to start to question the rules that are in place. Because what are those rules really doing?
Right.
They're keeping people out.
Yeah.
Right? And so as we lift this veil collectively, like, we need to really start questioning these rules that that exist, right? What does it look like to climb up a ladder? Do you, like, I know people that think that young people should suffer the way that we did. Like, I worked for free for so long, and we were abused. Like, if you worked in fashion and music as a young person back in the day, we were abused. I don't want that for younger people. I want to be able to sit with you and say, here are the lessons I learned. Please take these, right? Because we're here to open doors. We're not... Right. Why do we want to make things more challenging for people?
I think, I can agree to that to a certain extent, but I'll tell you something. I come from that same background as well, where I worked for free. Not to say that anyone should work for free, because no, that's not the conversation. But it does something to me when I feel like people are not pushing. Like, when I see the younger generation and they don't push, I'm like, man, some of the jobs that I've had, I created those jobs for myself.
Right.
It wasn't like someone you know what I'm saying? Like, I created it. The role didn't even exist before me. So so the frustration too comes from that. Like, it's like, again, yes, know your value, know your worth, charge exactly what, and then charge more.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with.
Well, no, I do
whatever you want.
No, I feel because sometimes I do feel like we don't charge enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I like sometimes, girl, when I used to have jobs and it was time for me to get a raise.
And I think that comes with a level of understanding and respect, right? I think work ethic is something that is learned and taught. And I think, the level of accessibility that young people have to the people in the positions that they want to be in is, I couldn't even imagine what it must be like to be a young person and be able to DM somebody that, like, you want to work with.
Yeah.
Do you know what it took for us? You'd have to, like, physically know them. You have to knock on their door. You'd have to know them.
Yeah, you would have to know them.
Which kept so many of us out of these rooms, right?
Correct.
So there is that. But I am with you when it comes to the processes, right? Yeah. And I think about this all the time, actually, because I'm a mentor and speak with a lot of young people that work for me or that I've known for a long time. Like, people I've known since they were 15, they're now 22, 23 years old. And sometimes there is conflict because I'm like, yo, I'm going to be here for you and I want to help you and I want to do these things, but I also need you to understand that we are not on the same level.
That's right.
And that's good
because
you need people to learn from so that they can
Right.
show you, how to compound those skills to because look, it's like it's putting somebody in a position of power that hasn't had the experience yet. We shouldn't be doing that. That's not
Right.
at all what I'm saying. What I'm asking for is that we don't keep people out of rooms because they are not like us, right? Because that's what was done to us.
Right.
But yes, y'all need to get your experience. It's very important.
Y'all need to intern
because
or
yeah, you
something.
need to intern. You need to get your experience, and you need to also recognize that optics are not real. That's all they are. They're optics.
Right.
They don't equate to money.
Right.
They don't equate to worth. And it's like what I was saying to my girl. Like she was talking about optics. Like, oh, they're in this, and I'm in da 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 da, and like whatever. And I'm like, but do you want that? Because like I was telling you earlier, I'm not on all these like Forbes lists and all these things. But what I do have is a thriving company. I hire people. I own a house. And my kids and my family are safe and they're healthy. And you know what? I'm good if I'm not on some Forbes list. I'm all right. It'd be nice to be on the Forbes list. It's
always nice.
It's always nice. Who doesn't want
I
a
wanted
list?
to touch on something. You actually said this in one of your stories. You said success derails your purpose. Expand on that a little bit.
Oh, God.
What
I've been
does
having
that
this
mean?
conversation a lot with people.
Because that one, I was like, wow, what does that mean?
I've been having this conversation a lot with people because success really does derail your purpose because when you become successful, the level of responsibility that you start to carry as a business person is unimaginable. I'm not as accessible as I used to be, and I don't have as much room in my brain as I used to be as creative as I would like to be. And like I said, this is like barely touching the surface of the things that I want to accomplish and I want to create. So I have been feeling, and I'm in a rebirth. I'm in a new season. Like I'm entering into a new season. So now I'm reevaluating like, okay, what are the things that I'm missing, which is that time to be creative, to be in my genius. So what do I need to give up to get that back? And for folks like myself that run multi-pronged businesses that, we have different clients and I have my employees and all of these people that I have to answer to. There's contracts and financing and all these things. I need people to help me manage those things. That's what's going to set me free. But those people cost a lot of money. So you got to kind of,
Yeah.
But for me to get back into my purpose, I have to give up some of the comforts that I have, right? And that is a financial shift for me. I'm going to have to pay somebody to do the things that I would do. I'm expensive.
Right.
I'm very expensive,
Yes.
I'm the most seasoned person at my company, which means I have to hire somebody literally at my level or higher.
Yeah.
Right? So that I can get back into my genius. And so with that comes a level of trust in yourself and trust in your path. Because it's really hard to let go of money.
Yeah.
We love money,
Exactly. Oh my God. That's a good way. I didn't think about it like that. For some reason, I took it a different way. So I'm glad that you explained it, because the way I received that message was sometimes when you have reached a level of success, you're comfortable. And so you forget the purpose. You forget why you even started.
That can happen.
You forget why you even started the business. I wonder, how do you keep it so creative? Because now you're on your second business. Let's talk about that.
How do I keep myself so creative?
Yeah, like how do you keep it fresh?
Time. Pumas took me like 4 years to get off the ground, to launch, one little product. And so I have to be okay with that, right? That I'm not 35 years old or 32, whatever I was when I started the company. I'm 38. I have 2 kids. I have a mortgage, and I don't have a huge financial backer. So I have to be okay with the steps that I need to take to get myself where I want to go. and manage my expectations of myself, right? So that I don't burn out, because that's really what the brand Pure Moss was birthed from burnout, right? It was birthed from losing my autonomy literally after birth. And so that's how I keep myself creative, but I have to recognize that like it's just going to take more time now. Like I'm not as much of a spring chicken as I was, but that's also beautiful because that comes with time and wisdom and all of these other beautiful things that come with aging.
Yeah.
I love growing up. You know?
Do you feel like you're embracing
growing
it more?
up Latina?
Growing up Latina. I used to be so afraid to get older. I used to be like, I never want to get older.
Girl, I can't wait to be 50.
I honestly feel like I'm in that era where I'm
thought I was untouchable now.
I'm embracing 50? It even more. You also mentioned I've had to learn a lot of things the hard way, and I took a ton of losses. I'm curious to know what losses, business-wise, have you taken?
I would say this. I've done some really, I've made some challenging hiring choices from a place of wanting to nurture when I wasn't in a place to nurture. And so that cost me some things, right? Like hiring the wrong people and thinking that they can do it and putting and it has nothing to do with them. It was my fault, fully my fault, right? You know, so those are some of the bad choices, and not bad choices, just my lessons. And, you know, I have taken some losses by speaking up. Right? And letting people know what I am and what I'm not willing to compromise. And I'm okay with that. You know, I feel really confident in my future. Yeah. So I'm like, whatever the setback feels like right now, it's just opening the door for something else. But it's, you know, it's mind control.
Yeah.
You got to keep telling yourself, like, you're going to be good. You're going to be good. You're going to be good. You know?
That's the part that I'm doing every day, girl. I'm like, you got this.
It's
keep
a struggle.
Going.
You know, there's an episode of Super Soul Sunday where, and I say this, I must say this every single day, where Oprah was like, you know, every day we're learning things, and God's trying to teach us. She's like, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, God, I don't want to learn today. Please don't teach me a lesson. Can I get a break? Yeah. And that's how I feel every day. I'm like, oh God, all right. What's the lesson? All right. We're gonna get it.
What advice would you give to someone who is kind of afraid to take that leap, but they want to? Because again, a lot of your positions came from the creation. Like you've created, you know, these things, and you kind of went against whatever the norm was for you. Against the grain. You spoke up. You are comfortable, you have this level of confidence. So what advice would you give someone who is afraid to take that leap of faith?
I would say go inward. Write it down. Go inward, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Write it down. And just keep doing that until you're no longer afraid of it. Because it's like, you're going to have to dig really, really deep to understand what's holding you back. I actually have this conversation quite often with my husband. And I find what's really interesting is that we have this kind of cultural stereotype about men being so brave. I believe the opposite. I believe that a lot of men are really afraid of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they get to hide behind the armor of money and, you know, power or whatever. But I have this conversation a lot with my husband. I'm always like, what is it that you are afraid of, right? And we talk about our fears, and I'm obviously way more forthcoming than he is. Yeah. But I think it's really important for us to ask ourselves, name them, so that we can push through them. You have to walk through what's holding you back, or else you're never going to get out of it. So I would say that. And then also just remember that, like, your path is, I really believe, kind of laid out for you if you can function from that mindset. So if you truly believe that, like, you got something, then you've got something. So just go for it, right? and find your community that's going to be there to support you. And it's not always, and it mostly is not your friends or your family.
Yeah. I could definitely agree with that.
Right? And that's something that's really beautiful, I think, about the age that we're in with social media. There's a lot of challenges about social media, but there's this ability to connect with people that want the same things as you.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have that support system and be able to cheer each other on. But yeah, like you got to face your internal fears.
Yeah.
And it's likely rooted in your childhood, so maybe go to therapy
For
too.
sure. Let me tell you something before we move on to our rapid fire questions. But I recently had a dream. I want to just add to that. I recently had a dream where I was like in this forest like environment. And there was a guy next to me. Don't know the guy. He doesn't look familiar in my dream. Never knew him in my life. So this guy's just like walking. We're walking up rocks. And we get to like the top of the rock. And there's like a beautiful pool. And there's a couple people that I know down in the pool. And the guy's like, all right, you got to jump. And I was like, I can't. And like my feet were hanging. They were hanging off the rock. Like if the wind would have blown a little too hard, I definitely would have fell in. And he's like, you got to jump. And everybody in the pool is like, just jump. And I spoke about this in therapy because I told my therapist, I'm like, I don't even know what this means. And everybody's like, just jump. And I'm like, I can't. I'm scared. And I was like, I'm scared. I can't jump. And I'm like, I want to go back. And he's like, there's no going back. You have to jump.
You're here.
And I'm like, I can't. Anyway, I woke up.
You never jumped.
I never jumped.
You can't get back into the dream, right?
I asked God, please, every single night I go to
You're
go to
not
bed,
ready.
I'm like, God, if you give me that dream, I'm going to jump. So I go to my therapy session. I'm speaking to my therapist about this. And she's like, what do you think it means? So now I have this theme in my life where things come my way. I'm like, just jump off the cliff. Just jump off the cliff.
You need to have a year of yes. You know that book by Shonda Rhimes?
Of course. I love that book.
Yeah.
So I actually have a list. I have a list and I wrote down everything that scares me. And every day I tackle one thing a day that scares me.
Good for you.
That's what I do. So I just wanted to leave everybody with that just because
Fear is, on the other side of excitement and success and all that stuff.
It's like
they're like right next to each other.
My sister growing up, she was always like the daredevil and she would go on all these roller coaster rides. She became a mom and like doesn't go on roller coasters anymore. I'm like
postpartum anxiety. It's real.
Yes. But I just wanted to leave everybody with that. I wanted to go into the rapid fire with you. Okay.
Oh, ready? I'm ready.
Okay. Tell me you're Latina without telling me you're Latina.
Me tienen tumbado.
Good one. What is something you would want to work on that you haven't already?
Oh gosh. Like emotionally or like a project.
Could be anything.
I really want to write a screenplay.
I see that for you.
I've been trying. I can't get the words out.
It'll come out.
It's a nightmare.
It'll come out.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
If you had an opportunity to have the Last Supper with 3 Latinas,
oh shit, okay.
Dead or alive, who would they be?
Oh my God! All right, Tatiana Ali, because I love me some Ashley Banks.
Yes.
Celia Cruz.
Everyone says Celia. It's so great. Everybody says Celia. Yes.
We gonna party.
Yes.
Tatiana Ali's Celia Cruz, and it's such a toss-up. It's a toss-up. I always want to say Frida, but I feel like she might be a downer. Like I feel like she'd be like mad. I think Salma Hayek.
Ooh.
I think she would bring a nice like flavor, to the room. I got my Panamanian, I got my Cuban, I got my Mexican vibes. We gonna
that's a good table,
things, right?
That's a good table. I'm not mad at that table. What is this chapter of your life called?
Freedom.
That. And lastly, finish this sentence. Growing up Latina is?
Oh gosh. Growing up Latina is turning Water into wine.
Literally.
Yes, literally.
Thank you so much, Zoila, for coming on the show. I appreciate your wisdom because really, you really, truly have wisdom.
Oh,
I
thanks,
appreciate
girl.
this conversation. And please, please, please just let everybody know where they can find you, follow you, because you have amazing things coming up.
Yes. Well, thank you, Allie. It was such a pleasure to be here, to see you again in like another lifetime, it feels like. And you guys can follow me on Instagram at my full name. It's a lot of children, just warning you now. Zoila Darton, my agency, Word Agency. And then we have our new brand, Pew Moss, a lifestyle brand for busy brains. And that is at pew.moss, P-U P-I-U, sorry, my brain, PIU.MAS, and PIU-MAS.com for the website.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thank
Allie.
you.